Hello, you're listening to Tony Slattery's Rambling Club, and you're most welcome.
Hello, my name's Paul Carmichael.
And I'm Alan Lear.
And we're here in the presidential shed, and we're just about to watch the news and see what's going on. Give it a click, Al, would you?
Oh, I thought we were going to step through to the president's official newsroom, where he keeps the news-tuned television along with copies of all the important papers of record, The Guardian, Sunday Sport, World Globe and so forth.
Is this one of these many rooms I haven't encountered yet within the
I think it's in the second annex, yes.
Ah, through here. Right, okay. Well, lead the way.
Right you are.
Well, look who we've got here in the newsroom, ready to lead us through whatever's going on in the world these days. Simon McCoy, welcome back.
Thank you very much. I'm just finishing the headlines, and the last word is fucked.
Global situation not improving as of yet.
Well, that is a slight improvement on where we were last week, but this is a room you just want to get out of as quickly as you can.
That one word is President Zelensky's discussion of the Trump-Russia deal, isn't it?
But, I mean, you've got to wonder how Zelensky is feeling. His country is under siege, people are dying every day, and you've got these two criminals, one of them a war criminal, discussing everything. And I would be I'm furious understates it. I mean, I have no concept of how he must be feeling as he watches these two ogres arguing over whatever it is they're going to be arguing with, which presumably is when does he get his photographs back? I don't know.
It's a very, very strange situation at the moment. It's an unnerving situation. Reality is not very kind at the moment, I don't think.
Well, I remember when I started in journalism in the early 80s, an armed robbery in London was big news on the radio. You'd have to shoot up a whole Sainsbury's and have 300 people before it got on the news now. I don't know why that is. Are we more... I mean, is there more shit going on, or are we just... we've got more access to what is going on? But it's quite terrifying. And I kid you not, an armed robbery in London made the front page of the Standard in the 80s. Where are those days gone?
Well, I'll tell you what we could do is we could step away from reality just for a little while, and with the aid of our wonderful bingo machine. Anybody up for giving it a whirl and seeing where we end up?
As long as languages don't come up.
Let's hope there's no etymology this week. Off we go.
Tony's enchanted bingo machine. A curious contraption of cogs, levers and glowing buttons that hums with ominous energy. This machine generates 3 completely random numbers. These numbers are fed directly into the Dewey Decimal System, the arcane reference system by which books and their contents are categorized. In this way, the bingo machine conjures from thin air a topic of conversation so enthralling, so wildly unexpected, that it leaves the members of the Rambling Club both bewildered and vaguely excited. Thus, another evening is saved from the brink of boredom, thanks to Tony's marvellous, possibly haunted and entirely inexplicable bingo machine.
Well, here we are in our first location, and the numbers for our first ramble this week are...
2, 1, 0.
210, 210. And that means the subject is... Natural Theology. Natural Theology. Natural Theology.
But theology is not natural.
No, I'd have said it's entirely conceptual.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
Well, Is this one of those occasions? Because of course the old Dewey Decimal System's getting on a bit now, isn't it? So it
Well,
does.
it's not alone.
It does like to give you a lot of things on theology and things. Natural theology, could that be to do with maybe what we've talked maybe about this before, but about the landscape and that in some way, nature. I'm going to struggle with this one. Natural theology, actually.
There is a dog. That's as near as I'm going to get.
On a surfboard, as we know.
On a bloody surfboard, yes. I challenge you to talk for a minute on natural theology.
All right. Is it human nature to need a theology in any way at all, to actually have a belief, or not? Because I was certainly raised very much with a belief, which I then dropped. But I was very much raised with that. Do we need that?
Well, we do. And when I was at school, we were taught that by this rather weird American who taught theology. But he said the God of the gaps. God of the gaps is so anything you can't explain, whether it's natural or whatever, anything you can't explain is down to God. Which when you're sort of early teens is fabulous and explains everything. Now I wish I could meet him again and I don't know, I'd probably hit him. But it's the whole theology thing. Again, that's changed in our lifetime. I think our view of religion and how it affects everything, and it has alarmingly negative tones now. Religion. If you look at what goes on in the church here and what religion is responsible for globally, you sort of think, well, most of our ills can be pointed at religion. So that's not a road I think we want to go down. So let's talk about nature. There's a lovely tree I'm looking at right now. But did God create that? Is it down to him? I don't know.
There was that lovely story Christopher Hitchens used to tell, which is when he said he realised it was all bollocks, which is when he was out on a nature ramble as a 5-year-old with his class, and he was being led by a nun, and she pointed out that there was a red apple, and wasn't it amazing that God had made this apple red because that's such a nice colour to look at? And he said that was the point where he went, no, hang on, this is cobblers. So at the age of 5, he got that quite well fathomed out, Chris. No.
He wasn't wrong, was he?
No.
What great arguments.
It's the idea of being led by a nun is bizarrely. Anyway, I'm going off into a ramble of my own.
And I suppose the earliest theologies are natural, aren't they? Because the earliest theologies are animist. They're worshipping a place of power, a tree or a stone or something where...
Or the sun or something like that.
Yeah, something significant has happened and you build a little cairn of bounce, and they're very natural powers that are worshipped.
See, I've always...
Stonehenge, all these things. Yeah.
There we are. I've always wondered if the reason that we feel such a connection to that, but also, I mean, other things, I suppose, like nature, everyone is able to be overawed by a beautiful sunset or a massive thunderstorm, is maybe sort of like there is a sort of a pullback to those times when we did, that was what we worshipped, that was what we were aware of, because unlike a god, it's actually bloody there. It's a storm coming in your face. It is the sunrise, the sunset, and the times of year. Maybe that's why we feel a connection to those moments. Maybe.
Yeah, well, obviously, Darwinism, everything. As we get supposedly smarter, we explain more and more, and that God of the gaps has less and less to be responsible for. But it is a need. You used the word need earlier, and I think that's the interesting word. Do we need to have something that we don't necessarily can't put our finger on and explain completely? And this is a very useful out. I mean, my God, I'm upsetting every churchgoer that's listening, but really, I think is the word really. I'm for nature, but we're rambling, which is the purpose.
Yeah. As a child, then, Simon, what part did nature play? Were you always outdoors playing?
No, I wasn't, because when first few years I was in London, we lived in a top floor flat, so we didn't get out to see nature very much. And I'm not very. I'm not a runner. If you see me, you'll know I'm built for comfort and not for speed. It's only recently, actually, relatively recently, that I've got to enjoy that. I now live in the Cotswolds, and I'm sitting here looking out at a garden with gorgeous cedar of Lebanon tree, a sequoia, and it's only recently I've got round to understanding just how amazing nature is. I've had a job in TV studios. I've holidays have always been not to do with nature, so I wouldn't call myself at one with nature in any way, shape or form. And only latterly in life, and I suspect this is true of lots of people, do you sort of really appreciate it. You can go down to the beach and look at the sea and go, wow, but walking around a garden and just knowing what certain trees are and what threats. I now know about ash and ash dieback and what to look for and how it happens, and you start to become part of it. I start to worry because there's an ash there that's not affected. What can we do? How do we look after these things? And Simon McCoy at the age of 20 wouldn't give him a flying fuck.
What about you, Al? Nature.
I'm like Simon. I find I appreciate it more as I go. Oh, you look. When I was 20, I would go, oh, do you want to go for a walk? No, I want to sit in a dark room with the curtains drawn. But more and more I find myself appreciating sunlight and natural spaces and blue skies. And there's a thing, isn't there, where apparently research has shown that hospital patients recover faster if they have a view that includes a tree. There's even some benefit to having pictures of trees on the wall. And nobody can really explain quite why that is, but it seems to be part of human nature that we have.
Well, it's also part of NHS building, because my dad was recently in hospital in Bristol, and they are now building hospitals and making sure that the windows have access to nature. And it's absolutely a thing. And I get it. Would you rather have a beautiful tree or a telly in your room? I think I'd now go for a tree, and I would never have said that a few years ago.
No, absolutely. As a younger man, I'd have gone for the telly every time. But these days, I don't know if there's something about the natural cycle when you can see it as well, of day and night and birds moving and things that beyond your window, things are proceeding as they should, as the author of Desert Artist said.
Yeah, well, but when you get to my age, you're not thinking in terms of days. You're thinking of seasons. You're thinking, spring is coming, and that's exciting, and in a way that you're not necessarily expecting. And that's certainly not true. I mean, there are people who live in cities who probably don't have that sense, who don't get out to the degree that they can appreciate it, and that's a terrible shame.
Well, for hundreds of years, seasons were how people timed their lives. You didn't, for the vast majority of the populace was illiterate. You wouldn't have calendars. Farmers might have an almanac, maybe, but for most people, the year was you plant, you water, you reap, fallow period. You plant, you water, you reap, fallow. That's a year.
And you've got that lovely thing at the same time, haven't you, when we didn't even have standardized time until the railways. And you could have 2 hours difference in the time anywhere in the UK. And it just depended on what the church clock said. That was the time. So I suppose even that whole thing of not getting up with nature, that's quite new, isn't it? Because for thousands of years, you would have got up when the sun rose, you'd have gone to bed when the sun went down, and that would have been it. And then suddenly...
From my days as royal correspondent, I happen to know that for years, and up until very recently, Sandringham had its own time. The royals made sure that they could go out shooting whenever they wanted to, and if the day wasn't long enough, they'd just bring the clocks forward. And there was a thing called Sandringham time, where it was totally separate from whatever else was going on in the country. And I think it's this king who's stopped it. It was up and running until that recently.
I can see him not being so keen on the shooting. He's a bit of an environmentalist, isn't he? But that's interesting because I was taught at school when I was doing Latin, the Roman day was 12 hours, but it was 12 hours sunbreak to sunset, and it was measured with sundials. So in winter, an hour would be shorter than an hour in summer.
Do you know your Roman numerals from 1 to 12?
Yes.
So the Roman numeral for 8 is...
The
I.
And for 3 is...
I.
And for 4...
IV.
IV.
Have you got a Roman numeral clock in front of you? On a Roman numeral clock, 4 is 1111.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
And it's one of those pub tricks you can make a quick fiver on. But I've never been able to find out why that is. You can ask any antiques dealer why a clock has the wrong Roman numeral for 4. Most people give you the fiver happily because they've never noticed. How many Roman clocks have you seen in your lifetime and never noticed that the 4 is wrong? And there was a theory that Louis XIV designed watch faces as a hobby, and he got it wrong, so it became the fashion. I'm not sure I buy that, but it's one of those things. Sorry, I just threw that in there.
Oh no,
It's one of my questions that I will have that I need answering before I die.
I'm looking at my clock that's been on that wall in that position for 20 years, and it has Roman numerals on the clock face, and I have never noticed that in 20 years.
That's
right
a fiver you owe me.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, I think when you look at a clock, what's important is the position of the hands. What's beneath them is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, it is. And it's weird.
Wow.
Do you know what? I think it's because you would have to manufacture a 4 if it was an IV. But if you put 4 1s in, you can just put 2 2s together, so you don't have to manufacture anything new or expensive.
Well, you could just reverse the 6, the VY.
I already have a VI.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sorry to shoot down quite so quickly.
Well, here we are, another location and another ramble, and the numbers this time are
3, 8, 7.
387, 387, and that means that the subject is... Now, sometimes these are very, very, very specific, aren't they, Alan? Incredibly.
They can be incredibly so.
And then other times you get this. Water, air, space transportation. Everything. Water, air, space transportation, 387.
Well, let's just pick up on the space thing, because when I was bricked up by Tony a year ago, the only thing I knew about space was somebody called, what was his name, Elon something or other. Don't know what's happened to him, but it was sort of big news. But I mean, you've picked, well, we can talk about anything. So let's air. I've just had one of those nightmares where a computer has completely wiped every password I've ever had. So I'm in a mild state of, and what would you tell me that would make me feel even worse? It have to suppose be that Elon Musk was president, or I don't know.
Funny you should say that.
Well, what about space transportation? Space transportation. Anybody here got any real ambitions to go into space or anything like that?
Yes, I've got a list of people I would happily put in any space rocket to go there. All these people obsessed with what's happening on this planet, let's just put them in a rocket and they can go and worry about somewhere else.
I was reading a book a little while ago called City on Mars, which is by a guy called Zach Wienersmith, who's not an expert, but he interviewed a lot of experts on, amongst other things, the legality of space colonization and that sort of thing. And he was talking about, this Elon Musk thing. Oh, we're going to go and terraform Mars and colonize it. And the thrust of the book is basically the important thing you have to know about colonizing Mars is that it is completely impossible and we can't do it. So whatever Elon Musk is saying is nonsense. And he makes a very valid point that no matter what happens on Earth, even if this asteroid that you don't know about, Simon, because you've been bricked up, but we're going to be hit by an asteroid, possibly. even if it hits us, and even if it causes a nuclear winter, and even if it causes a tectonic reaction and there's a volcanic eruption on the opposite side of the planet, as happened with the extinction of dinosaurs and so on, even if all of that happens and the Earth is completely devastated by environmental chaos, the Earth will still be the most habitable place in the known universe. There's nowhere else that comes close.
You mentioned this asteroid. I mean, how long have we got?
Well, personally, about 6.5 inches.
It was April, wasn't it? But I can't remember which April, which is not very helpful.
No. The only thing I know about it is that apparently it's projected to miss the continental United States, so karma is not a thing.
There was that fabulous film, wasn't there, with Matt Damon, The Martian, which suggested it was possible and sort of explained how. And basically, you plant potatoes in your own shit, and from there, life continues. There were some questions that weren't answered, but I can see the appeal. Yes, I've been locked away. I've managed to have a quick grasp of what's going on. And there is a huge urge to get off this planet, I think. I remember I used to talk to Tony about what was going on in the world, and he was despairing then. I have no idea what he was thinking.
No.
It is. I mean, because you've spent so much time covering world events, has there ever been a time that you can remember that was quite as unsettled as we're currently in?
Well, when I sort of started this business, that the stage of a royal marriage was what everybody was losing their sleep over. So things have changed a bit dramatically since then. No, to be honest, no. I was born in 1961, so Cuban Missile Crisis, which I guess is as close as you could sort of get to where we are. I was in a cot, but you'd have to look back at the Second World War to look at a global situation that we seem to be in now. But here I am. I'm 63, whatever it is. All I think is, what the hell have we left our children? What the hell is this next generation going to have to deal with? Because we've seemed to have lost control with common sense, and it is common sense. I spend a lot of time in America. My wife works there. She's an actress. And there's a real interesting divide between the East and the West Coast and the rest of America. The East and the West Coast is as horrified as we are with what's going on.
It's quite staggering, isn't it? The rapidity of everything that's happened. But back to the subject though. Water, space transportation. We must try and remember if we can. Well, I hate air travel.
So I was just going to say air travel. We're back to the USA, of course, because one of the very first things the Trump presidency did was decimate the Federal Aviation Authority, which just happens to have coincided with a steep rise in plane crashes. I think they had 12 days into his presidency, was it? They had the first major commercial air crash in 16 years, and there have been several since.
You wake up now in this country, and you think, "Oh God, what the hell's happened overnight?" You put the news on, and you see pictures of a plane crash, and then you hear what the president says about it, and you just want to pull the covers back over you and go back to sleep. Air travel, and the number of people who since that have said that they are not travel by air because they are so worried, because it now seems that every other day there's a plane crash somewhere, and of course it's all blamed on Trump or the FAA or whatever. But it doesn't take much. We only need a couple of more cruise liners to go down, and that's the end of the cruise business. In relation to the number of people who travel, of course, it's ridiculous. But we do get very frightened very easily.
And of course, it's not all Trump's fault, because people are saying the American civil aviation, their air traffic controllers have been overstretched for years. There aren't enough of them. This has just been kind of the straw that's broken the camel's back, which is the sort of catastrophe curve management we're very used to in this country as well, actually.
My guilty pleasures is air accident investigators. It's gripping stuff. It's fascinating stuff. But if you watch a few of those in a row, you do look up in the sky and just wait for one to come down, because you assume that. So it's a bit of a weird existence to sit in front of a telly and see why planes crash, what happens, and most of the time it is human error. Or if it is mechanical, you just don't particularly want to think about it.
There's a gap in the market for you, Paul. You could be on the first ever episode of Canal Boat Crash Investigators.
See, that would suit me perfectly, wouldn't it? And there's a gap there, isn't there? Because, obviously we've lost Tim West, so the series he was doing with Drew was finished. Maybe I could sort of combine the two. It could be a combination of something Jack Hargreaves would have done with something a bit more exciting and, disastrous. I quite like that idea.
But wasn't there a channel that was just a camera on a canal boat that just went along and you could just switch on and enjoy the journey? I mean, I think that's fabulous.
That would be quite soothing. Erica and I have driven a canal boat ourselves, and my favourite moment of the whole experience was when the elderly man on a Zimmer frame on the towpath overtook us.
But no, you're right there, Simon. Yeah, there was a while where we had slow TV, and it was when we were getting all the Scandi noir drama, wasn't it? And then they imported this as well, and there was a canal trip, and it was 4 hours, just the view from a canal boat. There was a country bus just driving through lanes, and it generated some of the best viewing figures BBC4 has ever seen, topping 1 million, which for them is quite something.
And also now, news is a business that is so expensive, and at the moment with social media is becoming, certainly on television, increasingly irrelevant. You do wonder why they're going to keep bothering with it, and why not just put a drive down the M4 in slow motion. You know, there's 4 hours of your life you won't get back, but you're not going to be angry at the end of it, are you?
No, and a lot of TV news is just recycling social media anyway these days, because they need so much content to fill the 24-hour news cycle. It's just such and such said this on X and everything's kicking off.
Everybody chasing each other. It becomes we're all so polarized, aren't we? Going back to air, the airwaves are just full of anger. And I've not been in a news studio apart from Tony's for a couple. Actually, bloody miss it, because you sit there. On the whole, you're delivering stuff that people don't particularly want to hear, in a manner that you really do want to put your head in your hands. I mean, I did that a couple of times while I was on air, and all you get from the viewers is, thank God someone's expressing a view we can get. But I do think we're in a stage where you put the news on at your peril. And I was obsessed with good news. There must be some good news out there. And when you really looked, it was. But again, it was an expense thing. It was a really expensive thing to cover, so people don't.
At the start of the 20th century, somebody launched a newspaper called The Good News, which was going to cover only positive news stories, but it folded after 3 issues.
And I tried to translate onto television. As I say, television is an expensive thing to do anyway. But people are cheered by good news. And how often do you sit there, watch, and they go upstairs and cry? But any story about put a bloody squirrel on or a fox, and that's all anybody talks about today.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another fun-packed, thrill-filled, shameless plug for Nice Things.
Nice thing.
The antidote to modern living, and joining me, Sir Michael Livesley, is...
My name is Lord Paul Carmichael.
And you can join us each Sunday for the latest...
Well, the oldest.
Showbiz tales and cultural bric-a-brac.
Technical specs and production notes.
On all your favourite rubbish.
From Arthur Askey
to Frank Zappa.
Because let's face it, things these days are pretty, shite.
They are. So, if you like good, honest rubbish, tune in.
In an uncertain world, it's reassuring to know that nice things never change.
Nice Things, available every Sunday from Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Well, here we are, our final location for the week and our final ramble. And the numbers for this ramble are...
6, 1, 6,
616, 616, and that means the subject is... diseases.
Cheery.
Anyone got a favourite disease they'd like to... Well, not spread, but... diseases. COVID, I mean, surely that's the immediate one to think of. It is is COVID. And God almighty, it's very strange to think that was only really 4 years ago that we were all...
Well, hang on. You say was. A couple of things here. One, it's very much still around.
True.
My wife suffers from long COVID, and it was... So it's really interesting, this, because we all obviously have a view about COVID and vaccinations and all this. And they're trying to work out why so many people still haven't gone back to work. I still think there is COVID, and this long COVID issue is massive and being ignored. And certainly when she and others first went to doctors and said, look, you've got these symptoms, and the doctor's initial reaction was always, well, is everything all right at home? They thought it was something in the head. And only now, what are we, 3-4 years on, are they realizing that there is a medical thing, there is manifestation in the body, in the lungs, where the virus has actually caused real damage. And that's why people are getting breathless. That's why they're getting tired. And it's a thing. So, we all thought they knew everything they needed to know about the disease COVID. And I still don't think they do. And all this...
Isn't it? Because that was a post-viral...
Exactly. It's exactly the same. Yumpy flu. Yeah. Very, very similar. And attitudes to it also very similar. And if you dare to go online and mention it, the number of people saying, oh, yeah, is everything all right at home? It's very weird. We think we know about diseases, and then we don't. I don't want to get into too much detail, but I'm being treated at the moment for a skin condition like psoriasis that's not psoriasis, but it's very rare, and they don't know what to do about it. And I've grown up to think doctors will always have a cure, always know how to treat things, and they still don't. There's so much we don't know still. And doctors have this wonderful knack of giving the impression that they do know. But every time I've ever walked into an NHS surgery, Dr. Google is always on the bloody desk. They've got the photographs from Google of what they think you've got should look like, and say, yeah, well, I think that's what you've got because that's the picture here. Which sort of does undermine your faith in doctors a bit. But
the medical profession is very good at hiding its ignorance of things. The word syndrome, in particular, is what a syndrome. The definition is it's a collection of symptoms that occur together and we don't know why. So that if ever you're diagnosed with a syndrome, it literally means fucked if we know. But these things all happen together, like in a clump for some reason. They've got a common etiology, but we don't know what it is.
The only doctor I would trust is a doctor who said to me, "Fucked if I know."
Yeah. But the other one was the word idiopathic, which means it's a one-off. An idiopathic. If you've got idiopathic something, it means it's happened to you and only you, and nobody knows why.
And you're very lucky.
Yes, you've won the lottery of news, whatever.
I've found my wife is very good at diagnosing anything that's wrong with any of the family before we go to the doctor, and it does save time. And to be fair, 9 times out of 10, she's quite right. Well, like you, Simon, at the moment I'm being treated for something called transverse myelitis, and that's something which has made a lot of doctors gone, fucking hell, not a clue. Absolutely not a clue. But my GP is now learning from me, and he said it's a very interesting thing, which that's lovely to know, I suppose.
Is that comforting, is it?
It's really comforting. Interesting. It's a rare and interesting condition.
Yeah.
Well, next time he wants an appointment with you, make him bloody wait.
Yeah. Charge him.
With what you were saying before, I wonder then, because obviously there's this thing of not really knowing yet about COVID, but of course everyone jumps to conclusions. Was it when the Black Death first hit, they blamed absolutely everything, and they got so many things wrong because obviously they blamed the Dutch at one point and decided it was definitely the Dutch, and it wasn't. And then they decided if it wasn't the Dutch, then it must be cats. So there was a law in London that if you had a pet cat, you had to take it to a man who would strangle your cat for you. So there's no cats, and of course then plague spreads everywhere at that point because the rats are having a free-for-all. So I just wonder, I mean, it's sort of a parallel, isn't it? Back then, we didn't seem to know what we were doing. But then 400 years later, there's still an element of Christ, not a clue. Sorry, fucked if I know.
Just if you go into London and there's the John Snow pub, and I always thought, God, how wonderful! I have a pub named after a newsreader who's still alive. But actually, my history is dodgy. But John Snow was, I think, the scientist who worked out that the reason parts of London were heavily populated with people who were dying with cholera. He found out it was because of the water supply, and there was a particular well.
Yeah, there was a particular water pump.
There was a particular water pump, and then it spread to somewhere else, and he thought, well, that doesn't work. But when he went to talk to the people there, they said, oh no, we travelled to go to that particular well because the water tastes different, and they were all dying of bloody cholera there, and stories like that I just love.
And then he cured the cholera epidemic by taking the handle off the pump.
Yep, that's right, and that's the John Snow of the John Snow pub in central London. Yeah.
Right, I certainly know that.
Do you know why in Haworth, in Bronte country, what happened there that basically led to a massive disease outbreak? This is remarkable, this one. It's probably the reason why Bramwell Bronte went mad and died quite young. And the reason is because the drainage was so poor that what they found is rain would accumulate up on the top of a hill, and it was washing down towards the only water supply in Haworth, coming through the water table, but it had to go through the cemetery to get there.
Oh,
so
no.
Making it through corpses, and then that's being used by the pub, it's being used by people for washing, for drinking, and so many people were dying in Haworth, nobody could find out why, but it turned, yep, there's the reason. You're using corpse water.
That's dead good.
Hey.
Oh, dear.
Well, of course, when it came to the Black Death, even the stuff they got right for the wrong reasons. Because the plague doctors used to wear those heavy leather overcoats and the big beaked masks. And the beaked mask was because they were operating on the miasma theory of disease. They believed that it was the foul smell that spread the disease. And the reason there's a beak on the mask is because it would be stuffed with posies, so that they would smell the floral, like a potpourri collection in your legs. And the smell couldn't get to you. And the plague doctors very rarely got sick. And everyone thought, oh, it must be the masks, the plague masks are doing the job. It wasn't. What was doing the job was the heavy leather overcoat, which the fleas couldn't get through.
Is that what it was?
Oh, wow. Wow. So it's one of those things where when you've got a hypothesis, things seem to confirm it. So you keep coming back to the same wrong conclusion. Sorry, sir.
Oh, no, as we speak, measles is back in America, and you sort of go, we learn nothing as we go along, do we?
No. And the one that Lawrence Fox wore that shirt that said, I don't need a vaccine, I have an immune system. He went to an expensive private school. I went to a bog standard state school, but even I know that you need an immune system for a vaccine to work.
Yeah. Gosh, two words I never thought I'd hear on this with Fox and Lawrence in one sentence. Heck, I was watching Day of the Jackal the other day with Edward Fox, who I think is his uncle, isn't he?
Yes.
God, they don't make films. They recently started a remake of that, and it has none of the drama and the tension that they managed to do in 1960, whatever it was. A good example of don't remake something that doesn't need remaking.
It's Michael Caine said, isn't it? Why are they remaking all the good films? The good films are good. You should be remaking the bad films and having another go at them.
Or buying the James Bond franchise and then destroying that.
Oh, God, yeah. Because he's done such a good job with Lord of the Rings. Obviously, what we need him doing James Bond.
That's why Neighbours have been cancelled again, isn't it?
Again. Yeah, you think they must have the message now.
Cancelling pretty much everything to pay for the rights to James Bond. So they're just having to drop productions all over the place.
I'm a mate of Tony Hatch's. I feel for Tony Hatch, who's done very well out of Crossroads and all the other things. But he must have thought that Christmas had come early when they relaunched Neighbours. But hey, yes.
And here we are back in the confines of the shed. Simon, that was a wide-ranging ramble today. Thank you.
Thank you.
That really did take in a lot of ground. And luckily we didn't come across any German language or anything like that. So, well, yeah, thank you, Simon. And thank you, everybody at home for listening. And we hope that you enjoyed this week's meeting of the Rambling Club.
The club, as you know, meets every Friday. But if you'd like to get in touch in the meantime, here's how you can find your fellow members.
The official website is at www.tonyslattery.com, and you can get in touch on the contact form on that website.
And we're at Twitter, at Slattery Live. Please feel free to use the hashtag TSRC, to discuss any of this week's topics.
I'm on Twitter as well, at Paul Carmichael V. I'm also on Blue Sky, and you can find at Slattery Live on Blue Sky as well.
And Tony also has a Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/TheTonySlattery.
And he's on Instagram as well, at Tony_Slattery_official.
And Simon, whereabouts are you on the social medias?
I'm all over the place, but I'm on Twitter at Simon McCoy TV, and I'm on Blue Sky as well. Same address.
Marvellous. And if people want to join the Rambling Club for themselves, Paul, how can they do that?
Well, the doors of the Rambling Club are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, of course. And if you head over to www.patreon.com/Slattery Live, we will be delighted to welcome you. And you can find some lovely perks for members right there.
Yes, and please do get back in touch by any of those methods, and we would be thrilled to hear from you.
And we will be back for another ramble next Friday at 5 to 5. But in the meantime, it's a goodbye from me, Paul Carmichael. It's a goodbye from Mr. Alan Lear.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from our very special guest, Mr. Simon McCoy.
Goodbye, thank you.
You have been listening to Tony Slattery's Rambling Club with our special guest President, Simon McCoy. He was accompanied by Stephen Fry as the voice of the bingo machine. Acting President McCoy was assisted by Paul Carmichael and Alan Lear. The music was composed and performed by Michael Livesey and Andy Fritzel. The lead voice are by Michael Livesey and the show's concept is by Paul Carmichael. Our producers are Stuart Morris and Alan Dubing, and the show's researchers is Sula Carmichael. The show's producers are Erika Lear and Mark Hutchinson. Our executive producer is Chris Castle, and the series executive producer is Mark Strickson. Tony Slattery's Rambling Club is a Fanfanitel-Produktion.
Goodbye, and thank you for listening.